Hey, so today should have been my 37-week update. I was 37 weeks on Saturday, but my husband came into contact with somebody who works at a retail store who, before the lockdown started, came into contact with somebody who tested positive for COVID. It's such like a somebody who touched somebody, but no, there was no touching. But anyway, point being, on Easter Sunday, a friend of my husband came into contact with a customer who ended up testing positive for COVID. He found out on Sunday, which my husband had seen him, I think it was Saturday night. He saw him just briefly, not very long, just saying hi to him basically. And so I didn't feel comfortable going to the hospital until Josh's friend got his results from his test. So he did test negative, so it's fine. Josh and I don't have to get tested, but I didn't feel comfortable going to my appointment today. He went and had his test yesterday at 1, and he received his results a few hours after what my appointment time would have been. So my doctor did call me on the phone. I gave her an update of just why I wasn't there today. I did ask them, if there was an appointment later in the week that I could go to, but they were full up on Thursday, Friday, and I didn't know how fast the results would come back. So they didn't make it in time. My appointment was for this morning. I think they came in around 11 or 12. No big deal though. My doctor called me, like I said, and so I gave her an update. Yeah, I gave her an update on how I was feeling. Nothing has changed really. I'm still a little tired during the day, but obviously that's to be expected this late in a pregnancy. I still have a lot of pain whenever I get up if I've been sitting for a while. But again, your pelvis is pretty loose at this point, getting ready for birth. I have been experiencing a lot of Braxton Hicks contractions. I never remember experiencing them in any of my other pregnancies. And I don't know if that's just because I thought it was the baby moving and kicking and pushing and stretching or what. But these are like actual contractions. It starts at the top of my bump, basically at the top. And it gets really hard, which happens when the baby kind of pushes his or her bum up against the top of my uterus. But this just gets really hard, and it travels all the way down to the bottom underneath my bump, and then sometimes puts pressure in my pelvic area. So I've had those all day today. Usually it's maybe 4 times a day, but today it was all day. And it was every 45 minutes when I was sitting on my yoga ball working on my computer. And then so I'd get up and I'd do something else, and they would die off or change frequencies and stuff. Mama. Yes. Okay. He's helping me with the video, and his comfort thing is putting his hand into my shirt. So anyway, I have been experiencing massive Braxton Hicks today. Like I said, I've never had this intense of Braxton Hicks before, so this is new to me. I have experienced actual contractions with my second when I was pregnant with Jonathan. I did have contractions and went into labor that way, so I do know how they start getting stronger and closer together, and they build and all of that stuff. But I am just kind of monitoring these contractions because, like I said, they happened all day, and I've never had that before or with any other pregnancy, and no other time in this pregnancy. So I have high blood pressure, and I was put on aspirin 81 milligram at 12 weeks. And I forgot to update you guys last week, but my doctor said I could stop taking it at 36 weeks. So I did stop taking it. And so far so good. I obviously was not able to get my blood pressure checked this week, and it obviously has been okay the last couple times because she didn't ask me to come in just to see what it was or anything. So I do have my next appointment next Tuesday. I did sterilize all of my, I have a Medela breast pump, and I did sterilize all of the components for that and all of the components we have for the bottles that we have in the house. Like I said, we have 4 different kinds of bottles. We have the Dr. Brown's bottles. We have 2 different kind of Medela bottles. And then I have Playtex bottles. And so, yeah, I sterilized all of those because I do like to bring a breast pump to the hospital. I still haven't done the birth stories for the other 3. But what happened in the hospital when Joseph was born, Joseph is my 3rd, that's Joseph. What happened when he was born is that he did not receive, like I tried breastfeeding with him. I didn't breastfeed with the others. And I tried breastfeeding with him. And obviously I didn't know how to do it. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a lot of great support at the hospital for it. So I was kind of on my own. I kept asking how the latch was, and the nurses were like, oh yeah, it's a great latch. It's great. It's great. But it hurt so much. And so he just wasn't getting enough food, and they kept trying to push formula on him, but they weren't telling me that they didn't think he was getting enough food. And they kept telling me the latch was great and he was getting enough milk and all of this stuff. And obviously he wasn't, because he did become jaundice and he had to go under the little lamp and suntan for a while. So that was, I think, like the 2nd day he was there, we started noticed he was getting jaundiced. And for those of you that don't know, basically babies are born with, I don't know if it's like what it is, but it's called bilirubin in their body. And as they eat and eat and drink milk or formula or whatever they're eating, they expel the bilirubin through like every time they pee and poop. So that's why they have you count how many times they've peed and pooped while you're in the hospital. And if they're not doing it enough, the bilirubin builds up in their system, and it can really cause like brain damage. It can go through this barrier in the brain and cause brain damage if it gets too extensive. Joseph's was never at a high level. It was close to the high level the first couple of days. And then we were in the hospital for 5 days, and 3 of those were him under the little lamp sun tanning, while I, because he wasn't getting enough breast milk and I didn't feel like I was breastfeeding efficiently enough, we had the breast pump. I bought it when I was pregnant with Jonathan. And so we had the breast pump. I had Josh run home, grab it, and I started pumping. And it wasn't my milk supply, because every 3 hours I was pumping out, I want to say it was like 6 ounces from each breast every 3 hours. Like, the nurses were just astonished at how much milk I was producing so quickly after birth. So he was able to get breast milk, and we were just trying to feed it to him in a bottle. And then once we got home, actually I ended up buying a book on breastfeeding by a doctor person. I have it still. I ended up buying this book. I'll put the link in the description. I bought it off Amazon because I was having issues with breastfeeding, and I didn't have time to go to the health unit and get help from like a lactation specialist or anybody. And I was trying to watch videos online, and they were doing great. But after I read that textbook, within, I think it was within 48 hours, Joseph was breastfeeding like a champ. That book has a lot of like problem solving and stuff like that. And this doctor's done, like, I think he's a doctor. He's been doing like specializing in breastfeeding since the 70s. So he's been like, he wrote a whole textbook on a lot of troubleshooting and problem solving with breastfeeding. So after reading that book, Joseph, we were at home at this point, and Joseph started breastfeeding like a champ. And he obviously, like, he loved the boobs so much, he would stop taking a bottle. And that was the only way he ate for the first 5 days in the hospital, was a bottle, except for that first night. And then after we got home, once I figured out breastfeeding, he was like, I don't want anything to do with a bottle. So I'll go more in depth into his whole birth story when we actually do his birth story video. But other than that, I have the breast pump and 4 different kinds of bottles just in case. They're all sanitized and ready to go in the breast pump bag. So I still have to pack the baby's hospital bag and stuff for Josh and I. I did ask the doctor today about whether we were still allowed to come and go to get food, and so far so good. Like she said, there is the capability of the hospital just randomly changing the rules with the snap of a finger. But I told her I would just keep harassing her and asking her every single week whether we were allowed to come and go. Because like I said, I want to be prepared. I do not want to go to the hospital and then be like, oh, you can't leave to get food. But she keeps reassuring me it'll all be fine. And she keeps reminding me that we can order guest trays if I need to order a guest tray for him. The nurses will ask and they just put the order in for the next meal, which honestly, I might even just go that route. Unless Josh gets a little stir crazy in the hospital. It's just easier and there's less having to go through the screening and all that stuff. Just order up an extra tray of each meal. And then the food people, like the kitchen people, are really good about letting you keep your food tray if you haven't quite eaten everything off of it. So we'll probably just do the food tray thing, deal with it. And my doctor said something about there's now options about what you can get to order from, like, because we don't have an ordering thing. We don't have a menu. It used to just be whatever was for breakfast, lunch, dinner, they would send up. So she said now there's options. So I'm going to have to ask her next week what she meant by that. But anyway, like I said, nothing has changed. The only thing that I'm really monitoring right now are these crazy intense Braxton Hicks contractions that, like I said, happened all day, at least 1 to 2 an hour. They've subsided since eating dinner. But other than that, I'm good to go, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good week.